time has come to conquer our last remaining frontiers and lead the resistance to victory on all fronts.
Talk about video games that we are reviewing. Video games are not dead. E3 has happened. It's done and dusted. No Man's Sky's not out for like 6 weeks or something, but we've still got video games. And you reviewed one.
Yes.
It's from the makers of Limbo, Playdead. It's called Inside. 8 out of 10?
8 out of 10.
Nice. Tell us about it.
It's really good. Like, it is easily one of my favorite games of the year. I gave it an 8 because I think that, did you play Limbo?
Yes.
You played Limbo.
A couple times played through, yeah.
When I played Limbo, I definitely, I saw how cool it is and how why people love that game, but there are also parts of it that I felt were flawed. Yeah. Like, I think that somewhere along the second half, it sort of lost itself. It lost that narrative feel that you had at the beginning, and sort of just got stuck in this rut of just completing puzzle after puzzle.
Yeah,
after
I
puzzle.
remember at the end of that game feeling like, oh, I'm glad this is over.
Exactly.
Like, I enjoyed it, but I was like, it was like 10 minutes over its sort of time.
Yeah. Inside is much better than that. It keeps its narrative cohesion basically throughout the entire game, but there are parts of it where I still see those flaws. Yeah. And I thought that it was just enough to sort of break it a little bit for me during the middle part of Inside. And
I guess your caveat while we're starting here is because a lot of people have been handing 10 out of 10s for this.
Yeah. That's my caveat.
Yeah.
My score was on the low end of what's been going around. I believe a lot of outlets have been giving it perfect scores.
Yeah, which tends to happen with smaller games. Yeah. You know, they do a little less, so they tend to get discount or mark down a little bit less as well. Right. So I guess let's speak to what works in this game. Is it very similar to Limbo? It looks like environmental, sort of like walking around, not super combat heavy.
Right. So the gameplay is essentially identical. Right. It's environmental puzzles. You're walking from left to right. You're trying to get through this world, but other than that, the sort of wrapping around that gameplay is almost entirely different. Okay. Like, in Limbo, the backgrounds were very vague. Like, they were white and gray and black. You didn't really see much in the background. Most of what was presented was along the same plane that you were walking. Inside, rather, the backgrounds are just like beautifully detailed. Like, there's all sorts of motion going on in the backgrounds. Like, there are people walking around, there's things happening, there's things moving. There's just these secrets hidden back there that give you a little bit more of an idea of what's happening in this world. That was probably, honestly, it's such a beautiful game. It is so gorgeous. And just looking and taking the time to walk slowly through these levels and looking into the background was one of my favorite.
And stuff happens in the background which impacts you as well, right? Yeah. So it's like, I've seen the parts where like guys are flashing flashlights at you and stuff like that.
Yeah. One of my favorite parts actually is during this section where there's this sort of like pulsing shockwave that comes every few seconds. And that pulsing shockwave will blow parts of the background into the foreground and can knock you off.
Right.
What's the term? Isn't it like 2.5D they started using for like, Rayman Origins kind of had that, as did the Castlevania 3DS game or whatever. Right. It's always interesting.
Yeah, it's very much like that, 2.5D. I loved those sections of just, staring into the backgrounds and seeing things happening back there.
Good stuff. What length are we talking about? And not to be reductive, but just as a sort of a general like...
It's pretty short. It's like it took me like 3.5 hours the first time through, I think.
Similar to Limbo?
Yeah. And then I played it again because I wanted to go through it again and see some of the parts that I might have missed. And it took me like an hour to finish, to just run through. Yeah.
Mike, you got any fond memories of playing Limbo?
I only just finished it finally like 4 months ago.
Oh, really?
It was, I think it was free on Steam or something, as it was like last week again. But I played it way back in the day when like Fez was out, and as was Braid and Limbo. It was in that first group of indie games when we still used indie as like if they were actually independent. Now it's kind of like a catch-all term a lot of times.
It was on like the tail end of that whole sort of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I think I agree with Alex. It was kind of, I got into that game for the atmosphere and the storytelling, like as stark as the storytelling was, but the actual puzzles themselves became really difficult in the game that I wasn't really looking for difficulty. I'm not averse to difficulty in any way, but that game, the momentum it carried through, the pacing it had the first half was just like, stilted later on.
Yeah, and I think you'll like Inside then because the puzzles don't really get difficult at all. it's way more about the puzzles interacting with the world and being complements to your exploration of the world rather than actually just completing the puzzles. So for most of that game, I thought it worked like way better than Limbo did even.
Cool. Does it have that same sort of like weirdly gruesome aspect to it as well? Like,
oh yeah.
I happened to be sitting next to him during one of those parts. All right. I had no idea what was happening.
That was actually the ending, so let's not go into that at all. But
sweet.
Like during that shockwave section that I was talking about, if you get hit by the shockwave, you literally get blown to bits. Okay. Like your arms get flung into the foreground, and there are parts where like blood just gets splattered all over. And it's. I did mention the ending though. I do want to talk about that as, not spoiling anything. What did you guys think of
specifics?
Yeah, exactly. What did you guys think of Limbo's ending?
It was nice. It was like forlorn and kind of. Like I'm trying to remember exactly the takeaway you were supposed to have from it, but it was like subtle and kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like bloody the end of BioShock or anything like that.
I don't know. I thought Limbo's ending, like, it was nice. It was sort of abrupt. It didn't really fit.
That's true. I didn't realize it was the ending until it was the ending.
Yeah. So Insides is abrupt as well, which is one of my it's like I described it when I saw it as like a roundhouse kick of metaphor to the face. Right. It's not subtle at all. It's incredibly abrupt, and it feels like this is one of my negatives, actually. It feels sort of like it doesn't fit with the rest of it, almost like they're trying too hard at that point. The more I thought about it, the more I sort of liked it. Yeah. But I still don't think it was the best way they could have ended that game. So, got to stick the landing if you're going to drag people through a 3-hour narratively, explorative game. Exactly.
It's out on Xbox One right now. Came out today. Tomorrow? It's out tomorrow. Okay. Yeah. It's on out for PC then for a week after that. July 7th, apparently. Yeah. You played it on Xbox One, presumably. Yeah. Have you played it on PC yet?
I haven't yet.
Okay, cool.
I can imagine it's beautiful on PC. So.
Yeah. Don't expect too much in terms of controls or anything like that. Yeah. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming on.
Thank you.
Telling us about Inside. It's one of the more difficult games to come on to the lobby and talk about because it's kind of want to keep it vague as possible.
Exactly.
$19.99 right now, available on Xbox One. Will be on PC real soon as well for, I imagine, the same price.
Yeah.
Cool.